At first glance, Crestwood Terraces seemed like a calm oasis, a tidy collection of two-story condo buildings arranged around well-manicured lawns, flower beds bursting with petunias, and a decorative pond at the center. In the early evenings, you might see residents strolling around the pond, greeting each other pleasantly. The Homeowners Association, HOA, took pride in its strict but, so it claimed, fair rules, ensuring a uniform look to the buildings and grounds. Among the many residents, Marianne Cooper stood out in a subtle way. She was in her late 70s, quiet, with a gentle smile and a distinctive rolling grocery cart that helped her transport bags from the parking lot to her second-floor unit. Marianne had lived through multiple hip surgeries. The cart made life simpler, sparing her from carrying heavy bags. For months, she moved in and out of Crestwood Terraces with minimal fuss, enjoying the serene environment and the neighborly hellos. Little did she know that trouble was about to surface, spearheaded by an HOA board member named Gloria Farnett. They'll most quietly refer to her by the unflattering nickname Karen. Gloria was in her 50s, always meticulously dressed in pastel blouses, hair styled into a stiff bob, and perpetually accompanied by a clipboard. She prided herself on monitoring the property for any breach of the HOA's elaborate guidelines, stepping in uninvited to correct anything she deemed unsightly or deviant. At first, Marianne was only vaguely aware of Gloria. She might see her at HOA gatherings or catch a glimpse of her striding across the courtyard, always on the lookout for violations. But soon, Marianne's rolling grocery cart would draw Gloria's ire like a magnet. A single morning's minor incident would escalate into a full-blown vendetta, turning Marianne's life upside down, and, ironically, leading Crestwood Terraces to re-evaluate some of its most rigid rules. Gloria Farnett had been on the HOA board for 5 years and had evolved into its de facto enforcer. If a resident's flower pot strayed 1 inch beyond the designated line, if a child's bicycle was briefly left near the lobby, or if a front door wreath was deemed too large, Gloria was the first to send an official complaint letter. She relished the power, framing it as protecting property values and neighborhood harmony. In truth, many neighbors privately found her approach invasive, but they rarely stood up to her. She employed the bylaws with mechanical precision, citing obscure clauses about aesthetic uniformity and common area maintenance. Over time, she had grown bolder, convinced that her interpretation of the rules was always correct. During her morning rounds, Gloria began noticing Marianne's grocery cart. It was a simple, collapsible model with sturdy wheels that rattled faintly on the walkway when Marianne came from the parking area, typically on Mondays after a supermarket visit. At first, Gloria glared at the cart's scuff marks on the concrete. Then she decided the cart itself was an unsightly rolling apparatus. She snapped pictures with her phone, capturing Marianne's routine from afar. Grainy shots of Marianne pushing the cart down the path, occasionally stopping to rest. Gloria sneered at the battered cloth bag attached to the frame, which bore slight discolorations from years of use. In Gloria's mind, the cart looked cheap and out of place, a direct affront to Crestwood Terrace's carefully curated appearance. Rather than addressing Marianne politely, Gloria circulated an email to the HOA board, describing the cart as a rolling hazard, defacing common walkways. She demanded immediate enforcement against unauthorized rolling equipment. 1 or 2 board members questioned her complaint. Was the cart truly a violation? But Gloria pressed forward, brandishing vague references to safety hazards, as if the cart might cause unsuspecting residents to trip. Marianne, for her part, remained unaware that she had become the subject of Gloria's obsession. She simply carried on, using the cart once or twice a week to transport groceries. That small convenience was about to land her in the middle of a fiasco she never asked for. On a crisp Tuesday morning, Marianne found a neatly folded letter slipped beneath her door, emblazoned with the HOA logo. She opened it with mild curiosity, reading, "Dear Ms. Cooper, it has come to our attention that you have been repeatedly using a rolling cart on the common walkways. While we appreciate the need to transport personal items, we have concerns about potential scuffing of the concrete and disruption of the aesthetic environment. Please be aware that any personal equipment used in common areas should meet HOA guidelines and not pose safety or cosmetic issues. We request you immediately cease use of the unauthorized card on shared property until an official review can be conducted. Failure to comply may result in fines or other enforcement measures. Sincerely, Gloria Farnett. On behalf of the Crestwood Terraces HOA. Marianne read the letter twice, stunned. Disruption of the aesthetic environment. She used the cart simply because she had hip problems and struggled to carry groceries. She had always been careful, pulling it along gently to avoid blocking anyone or making noise. She had no idea it could possibly break a rule. Concerned, she showed the letter to her neighbor, Donna Miller, who lived across the hall. Donna gasped, shaking her head. Gloria's at it again. Don't let this intimidate you, Marianne. You have every right to use a cart for groceries. There's no specific rule banning it. Feeling uncertain, Marianne drafted a polite response, explaining her mobility issues and that the cart was necessary for daily life. She assured the board she was cautious about not scuffing surfaces or blocking walkways. She dropped it off at the HOA's management office, hoping for an amicable resolution. What she didn't realize was that Gloria rarely accepted explanations once she'd labeled something an eyesore. The letter would mark only the beginning of Marianne's tribulations with the so-called Karen of Crestwood Terraces. A few days later, Marianne ventured outside with her cart again, pushing it slowly along the walkway. She did her best to steer clear of planters or the edges of flower beds. The rattling was minimal, just a gentle hum of rubber wheels on concrete. She thought about the complaint letter, but it seemed unreasonable to stop using the cart altogether. She needed it. Halfway to her destination, she spotted Gloria Farnett emerging from behind a tall hedge. Clad in her usual pastel cardigan, clipboard in hand, Gloria marched straight toward Marianne. Her expression, a mask of exasperation. You got our notice, Miss Cooper, Gloria said, voice clipped. You're still using that rolling contraption. Why haven't you ceased its use pending review? Marianne gripped the cart handle, heart pounding. Miss Farnett, I sent a response to the board. I explained my condition, my hips. Carrying groceries is painful without this cart. There's no official rule about it, correct? Gloria's lips tightened. We maintain a right to preserve the property's aesthetic. That cart scuffs the walkway, not to mention it looks out of place. Don't you realize the standards we uphold here? Her tone dripped with condescension. Marianne felt her cheeks flush. I understand wanting the complex to look nice. But my cart is not harming anything. I'm careful, and it's essential for me. Gloria snorted. Be that as it may, the board can impose restrictions on personal equipment that mars the shared space. We'll see about that in the upcoming meeting. Then, with a final glare, she pivoted and stomped off. Marianne continued to the parking lot, unsettled. She'd encountered curt officials before, but never someone so dismissive of a genuine need. She worried about potential fines, or worse. What if they tried to forcibly ban her from using the cart? Could they do that? The question nagged at her as she gathered her groceries, returning home with a new sense of dread each time the cart wheels turned. Shaken by Gloria's hostility, Marianne decided to see if any official guidelines truly barred her cart. She attended an upcoming HOA open office session where residents could ask questions. The session was run by two board members, Mark Ellison and Susan Park, both known to be more moderate. Patiently waiting in line, Marianne finally approached them, letter in hand. She explained the situation, emphasizing her disability and how the cart allowed her independence. I can't imagine the building forbids a rolling bag. That's so extreme, she said. Susan Park frowned. I'm sorry you've been harassed. As far as I know, there's no direct rule banning grocery carts. The bylaws mention excessive or disruptive items in common areas, usually referencing large furniture or hazardous objects. A small personal cart for groceries doesn't seem to qualify. Mark Ellison nodded. Gloria has been citing potential scuff marks or damage to the walkway. That might be a stretch. Unless your cart is leaving deep scratches or causing real harm, it's probably not an actual violation. Relief washed over Marianne. Thank you. I suspect Ms. Farnett is blowing things out of proportion. I'm willing to be mindful. Maybe I can put rubber protectors on the wheels if that helps. But I can't stop using it. Susan took notes. We'll bring this up with the board at our next meeting. Let's see if we can get a formal statement clarifying that personal rolling carts are allowed when used responsibly. Marianne left the session feeling hopeful. If Mark and Susan were on her side, perhaps this conflict could be resolved peacefully. Yet she couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. Gloria Farnett was notoriously stubborn, and a simple endorsement from a few board members might not suffice to quell her vendetta. Days turned into a week with no official response from the full board. Marianne continued using her cart, making sure to be extra gentle. She feared crossing paths with Gloria. It felt surreal that something so mundane had become a source of tension. Then came the next incident. Marianne returned from a grocery trip one afternoon to find a letter taped to her door. This time, more forceful. Ms. Cooper, despite repeated warnings, you persist in using the rolling cart. We have received complaints of unsightly scuff marks. The HOA enforces rules for the collective good. We are moving toward official action if this violation continues. Please remove or discontinue this cart immediately. Signed, Gloria Farnett, HOA Enforcement. Marianne's hands shook as she read it. She had no illusions about who had complained. Gloria was orchestrating this. That evening, Marianne's neighbor Donna invited her for tea. Word of the letter had spread. A few neighbors whispered about Gloria's tactics. Donna patted Marianne's hand. Don't let her bully you. She tried something similar with me last year over a welcome mat she found too bright. The board ended up doing nothing, but it was stressful. Marianne sighed. I'm just frightened. She might impose fines or try to take the cart away physically. If I lose it, I'm stuck. I can't carry heavy bags far. Donna's gaze hardened. You're not alone. We'll back you up. I'll talk to other residents who also rely on rolling carts or walkers. Maybe we can show the board how common it is. It was a comfort to know neighbors sympathized. Nonetheless, Marianne sensed that Gloria wouldn't rest until she forcibly removed Marianne's cart or made it impossible to use. A small voice inside Marianne told her to prepare for the worst. Dark clouds loomed on the horizon, both literally and metaphorically. On the day, everything changed. Marianne decided to do her weekly grocery run a bit earlier, hoping to avoid potential drama with Gloria. The sky threatened rain, so she hurried through the store, then drove back, parking in her usual spot. She carefully loaded her cart with bags, fruit, cereal, canned goods, a carton of milk. Slowly, she pushed it along the walkway that encircled the complex, heading toward the front lobby door. The building's design forced her to pass a communal courtyard, which was somewhat deserted on that dreary afternoon. Suddenly, a voice barked from behind, startling her. There you are again with that contraption. Marianne spun, heart jolting. It was Gloria Farnett, umbrella in one hand, that ever-present clipboard under her arm. Rain spattered around them. Ms. Cooper, I told you, this is not permitted. Before Marianne could protest, Gloria strode forward, scowling. She grabbed at the cart's handle, forcing Marianne to let go to avoid falling. Stop! What are you doing? Marianne exclaimed, reaching out to steady herself on the walker. With surprising force, Gloria jerked the cart away from Marianne's reach. Bags jostled inside, a few items toppling out. I'm enforcing the rules, Gloria snapped. If you won't comply, I'll keep this cart out of commission. You have no right to damage the walkway for your personal convenience. Horrified, Marianne tried to move forward, but her hips ached, and the slick walkway made it risky. In the confusion, Gloria dragged the cart across the wet concrete toward the perimeter fence of the courtyard, about 20 yards away. Groceries spilled en route. An apple rolled away. A box of cereal splashed into a small puddle. Struggling to follow, Marianne called for help, but it was midday and few residents were around. By the time she caught up, Gloria was kneeling, rummaging in her handbag. She pulled out a length of rope or cord, then fastened the cart's metal frame to the fence with a series of tight knots. Now, Gloria hissed, standing up, let's see you keep dragging it around. We don't need your wheels scuffing everything. The cart was pinned to the chain-link fence, groceries half exposed to the drizzle, effectively out of Marianne's immediate reach. Mary Ann's eyes flooded with tears. You can't do this. Gloria sniffed. Watch me. The HOA supports consistent enforcement. If you want your cart back, you can address the board. For now, it stays put. She spun and marched away, leaving Mary Ann trembling, stunned, and drenched in the drizzle. Mary Ann stood there, heart pounding, watching water drip from her stolen grocery bags. Anger, humiliation, and panic mingled. She tried tugging the rope, but her arthritic fingers struggled to loosen the knots. Each attempt sent pain through her hips. She realized she couldn't free the cart alone. Her cry for help echoed in the courtyard. After a tense minute, Ethan Morales, a young man from the next building, arrived, alerted by the commotion. "What's going on?" he asked, rushing over. "They took my cart," Mary Ann stammered, eyes brimming with tears. "Tied it to the fence. I can't get my groceries." Ethan's face hardened at the sight of the rope. "Who did this?" "That's insane." "Gloria Farnett," Mary Ann whispered. "She said it's not permitted." Ethan muttered a curse under his breath, then bent down to examine the knot. With swift, strong hands, he managed to untangle the cord. Carefully, he freed the cart. Groceries that had fallen out lay scattered, some soaked. Mary Ann thanked him repeatedly. Another neighbor, Liz Becker, stumbled upon the scene. She gaped at the sorry state of Mary Ann's cart and groceries. "Is Gloria out of her mind? She physically locked your cart to the fence? That's outrageous." Word spread swiftly among passers-by. Soon, several concerned neighbors hovered around, helping collect Mary Ann's soggy groceries. Ethan insisted on carrying them himself, while Liz and another woman supported Mary Ann to ensure she didn't slip. They escorted her back to her unit, ensuring she settled in safely. As Mary Ann sank onto her sofa, tears spilling down her cheeks, Liz patted her shoulder. "We'll take this to the board. She can't get away with such cruelty." Mary Ann nodded, exhausted. The magnitude of the situation, an elderly woman's essential assistive device forcibly locked away in the rain, triggered a wave of outrage. Over the next hours, calls, emails, and texts flew between residents, condemning Gloria's action. The conflict had escalated from petty rule-bending to outright bullying. Something had to change. No one saw Gloria Farnett for the rest of that day. Some suspected she holed up in her condo, anticipating backlash. Indeed, by nightfall, messages flooded the HOA's online forum. Residents posted outrage comments. "I can't believe Farnett literally tied an old lady's cart to a fence. This is beyond anything. We need to remove her from the board. If she's capable of such cruelty, what else has she done?" Even a few who once sided with Gloria about strict standards now realized she crossed a moral line. A battered grocery cart was hardly a threat to property values. Tying it up forcibly? Plain malice. Meanwhile, Mary Ann was traumatized. She found it hard to sleep that night, replaying the scene in her mind. The next morning, her hips felt stiffer from the stress, and she dreaded leaving her condo, worried Gloria might accost her again. Concerned neighbors came by, offering help. Liz Becker dropped off fresh produce to replace the items soaked by the rain. Ethan Morales assured Mary Ann he'd walk with her whenever she needed to bring groceries inside. Even Donna from across the hall proposed a buddy system for seniors with similar mobility challenges, so no one was left vulnerable to harassment. The sense of community support brought Mary Ann a measure of comfort, but anger still bubbled beneath the surface. She decided she had to stand up for herself. This wasn't just a personal grievance. It was about ensuring no one else was bullied by Gloria's heavy-handed tactics. She typed a formal complaint to the board, describing the incident in detail. Others promised to back her up with witness statements. But would that be enough? Gloria still held an influential position as the self-appointed enforcer. Mary Ann wondered if the board would actually discipline her or just give her a mild slap on the wrist. Only time would tell. The uproar forced the HOA board's hand. Within 48 hours, they announced an emergency session to address the allegations against Ms. Farnett. Flyers appeared in the lobby and near mailboxes. Attention residents. An emergency board meeting will be held Friday at 7 p.m. in the community hall to discuss a recent incident involving Ms. G. Farnett and Ms. M. Cooper's personal cart. All are welcome to attend. Crestwood Terrace's HOA board. Excitement and tension gripped the building. By Friday evening, the community hall was packed, with people standing when chairs ran out. At the front table sat the board, President Erica Fox, Mark Ellison, Susan Park, and 2 other members. An empty seat for Gloria Farnett stood off to the side, uncertain if she would show. Marianne arrived with Liz and Ethan, feeling nervous but determined. She sat near the front, prepared to recount her ordeal. The hall buzzed with hushed conversation. At precisely 7 p.m., Erica Fox rapped a gavel lightly, calling for order. "We're here to discuss an incident involving Ms. Farnett and Ms. Cooper's grocery cart," Erica began, voice steady. "We understand Ms. Farnett forcibly tied Ms. Cooper's cart to a fence, preventing her from retrieving her groceries. This is a serious allegation of misconduct." At that moment, Gloria Farnett entered, her face stone-like. She took the empty seat, refusing to look at Marianne. A hush fell. Erica invited Marianne to speak first. With trembling hands, Marianne described how Gloria seized her cart, left her groceries in the rain, and roped it to the fence. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience. Liz and Ethan confirmed the story, detailing the aftermath. Another neighbor, who witnessed part of the confrontation from a distance, vouched that Gloria was shouting about ugly rolling contraptions. Finally, Erica turned to Gloria. "Ms. Farnett, do you have a response?" Gloria's jaw clenched. "Yes, I do. This so-called cart was damaging our walkways, leaving scuff marks. Ms. Cooper ignored multiple warnings. I had no choice but to remove it from use until we could address the matter properly." An outraged chorus erupted. Someone shouted, "That's no excuse for tying it to a fence." Another yelled, "This is elder abuse." Erica raised her hand for silence. "Ms. Farnett, forcibly confiscating personal property is not standard procedure, nor is humiliating a resident by depriving her of groceries." Gloria's face reddened. "I was enforcing the bylaws. People are so quick to judge. The cart is a nuisance, and Ms. Cooper refused to comply." At that, Mark Ellison spoke up, referencing the bylaws. "I see no explicit ban on small rolling carts. Even if we needed an official rule, the correct approach is to discuss or propose new guidelines, not vigilantism. Ms. Farnett's actions appear wholly unjustified." Erica surveyed the room, noting the overwhelming disapproval on residents' faces. "We will deliberate on possible sanctions. Meanwhile, Ms. Cooper, you have the board's apologies for this distress. We never authorized such extreme measures." Gloria scowled, but the tide had turned decisively against her. The meeting concluded with a promise from Erica that the board would soon vote on how to censure Gloria and clarify the policy on personal carts. The crowd's mood was a mix of anger at Gloria and relief that Marianne's plight was finally heard. In the aftermath, neighbors rallied around Marianne, reassuring her that Gloria's reign of terror was likely ending. Yet Marianne couldn't shake the memory of having her property seized in the open. She felt a lingering sense of violation. Some suggested she might press charges. Indeed, Liz and Ethan urged her to file a police report, calling it a form of theft or at least harassment. Marianne wrestled with the idea. She wasn't a confrontational person, but perhaps it was necessary to send a message that such aggression was unacceptable. Over tea, Donna gently said, "The police might not do much more than take a statement, but it could deter Gloria from future stunts, or the HOA might use that as grounds to remove her from the board." Eventually, Marianne agreed to speak with law enforcement. She visited the local precinct, accompanied by Liz. An officer listened sympathetically, noting down how the cart was forcibly taken and tied up, how groceries were damaged. The officer explained that, given it was personal property taken against Marianne's will, it could indeed be considered a form of criminal mischief. They follow up with the HOA. Back at Crestwood Terraces, rumors swirled that the board was considering removing Gloria from her position. Some residents worried she might dig in her heels. She had allies, after all, certain members who believed in strict rules or who feared crossing her. But the cart incident was so blatantly cruel that few could defend her actions. Meanwhile, Marianne's cart soared in local notoriety. People saw it as a symbol of resilience and neighborly compassion. A few other seniors admitted they'd like to use rolling carts for convenience, but had avoided it for fear of scuffing or citation. They appreciated Marianne blazing a trail. Even as the board prepared to censure Gloria, they also looked for constructive ways to address seniors' needs. Mark Ellison, joined by Susan Park, proposed establishing a designated indoor storage area where seniors could keep carts, walkers, or lightweight scooters without fear of blocking the walkway. This solution might have prevented the conflict entirely. They pitched the idea to the rest of the board, who found it sensible. The building had a partially unused storage nook near the lobby that could be converted into a mobility aid storage area. Painted in neutral tones, equipped with small shelves or hooks for collapsible carts. What's more, it would encourage a sense of community care. Marianne's eyes lit up when Mark mentioned it. She had no issue storing her cart somewhere safe, especially if it meant less friction with the walkway. The scuffs were minimal anyway, but having a recognized spot could quell any aesthetic complaints. Encouraged by this positive momentum, the board scheduled a second meeting to discuss the proposed solution. They also promised Marianne that any future usage of personal carts will be protected under a new bylaw stating that residents with mobility or health concerns could use rolling aids without penalty. The tide was indeed turning in Marianne's favor. But one big question remained. What about Gloria Farnett? She continued to act defiant, claiming she had the moral high ground. The next board meeting would decide her fate and, ironically, finalize the policy changes triggered by her own misguided aggression. Word leaked that the board intended to vote on removing Gloria from her position. In the days leading up to that meeting, she became uncharacteristically silent. Gone were her public rants. She avoided eye contact, didn't patrol the hallways with her usual zeal, and even missed one of her routine enforcement walks. Some speculated she was lawyering up, prepared to fight the board. Others guessed she might flee, not wanting to face public humiliation. Then, a few neighbors started receiving emails from Gloria, rant-like messages defending her actions. One read, "We must uphold standards. If Ms. Cooper's card is allowed, soon we'll have clutter everywhere. My only error was being too forceful. But the principle stands. We cannot let individual conveniences mar the communal aesthetic." These emails circulated around Crestwood Terraces, fueling more anger. Residents who once tolerated Gloria's nitpicking saw this as a sign she'd learned nothing from the fiasco. She still framed the entire card incident as an attempt to protect property values. When Marianne saw the forwarded emails, she shook her head. "No remorse," she murmured to Donna. "She calls my groceries clutter? It's basic necessity." Donna patted Marianne's arm, comforting her. "Ignore her. The board is behind you now. Her days of harassing folks are numbered." Despite that reassurance, Marianne dreaded the upcoming board meeting. She hoped for a decisive outcome, but feared Gloria might manipulate or intimidate certain members. The day of the vote approached with a mixture of relief and anxiety in the air. The evening of the decisive board meeting arrived, and the community hall was again filled to capacity. Residents buzzed with anticipation, recalling the spectacle from the last meeting. Many expected high drama. Gloria Farnett entered with a stiff posture, chin raised, refusing to greet anyone. Marianne, seated among supportive neighbors, felt the tension spike the moment Gloria walked in. At the front, President Erica Fox called for order. "Tonight we will address two related agenda items. The motion to formally sanction Ms. Farnett, possibly removing her from the board, and the proposal to create a designated cart storage area, plus new guidelines for personal mobility aids." She paused, scanning the crowd. "First, we will hear from Ms. Farnett regarding the incident with Ms. Cooper's cart. Ms. Farnett, do you have a statement?" Gloria rose, clutching the microphone. She launched into a defensive monologue, claiming she had only tried to prevent walkway damage and maintain building aesthetics. She insisted that if everyone used rolling carts, the property's image would degrade, and scuff marks would become rampant. She acknowledged tying the cart to the fence was an overreaction, but argued it was provoked by repeated noncompliance. The audience reacted with murmurs, some rolling their eyes. Marianne fought to remain calm. Then Erica signaled for Ms. Farnett to conclude. The next speaker was Mark Ellison, who laid out the board's perspective, that Gloria's actions were not simply a minor breach, but a serious violation of a resident's rights and property. A hush fell as Erica opened the floor to a vote. The motion was, should Ms. Farnett be removed from the HOA board for misconduct? Each board member signaled their vote verbally. Susan Park said yes. Mark Ellison said yes. Another board member, clearly swayed by public sentiment, also said yes. The fourth paused, then reluctantly voted yes. Finally, all eyes turned to Erica Fox. I also vote yes, she said solemnly. The motion passes unanimously. Effective immediately, Ms. Farnett is removed from her position on this board. A roar of applause and cheers erupted from the audience. Gloria's cheeks turned crimson. She stood for a moment, lips parted, then spun and marched out of the hall without another word. The crowd parted for her like a wave. Erica hammered the gavel for silence. Next item, the new guidelines for personal mobility aids. The applause resumed, this time in excitement. Marianne exhaled, tears in her eyes, overwhelmed by relief. Justice, it seemed, had prevailed. Following Gloria's removal, the atmosphere in Crestwood Terraces lifted noticeably. Many residents who had felt stifled by her constant scrutiny and petty citations could breathe easier. The scowling presence that once hovered around corners was gone, leaving the building in a calmer state. The board swiftly approved the new mobility device guidelines. Mark Ellison introduced them at the next regular meeting, explaining that any cart, walker, or small scooter used for health or convenience was permissible in common areas, provided residents took reasonable care not to block doorways or damage surfaces. The board also greenlit Susan Park's proposal for a cart storage alcove, ensuring an indoor spot near the lobby where seniors could park their rolling aids if they wished. Marianne found the changes heartwarming. She no longer tiptoed around with her cart or dreaded bumping into a roving enforcer. Instead, she comfortably wheeled her groceries home. If it rained, she could store the cart in the designated area inside the building. The neighborly camaraderie around her soared. People asked if she needed help sometimes or offered to share rides from the grocery store. Other seniors came forward, relieved that they too could use rolling carts or walkers without fear. A handful even organized a small senior mobility group, sharing tips on which cart models were best for arthritic hands. It was a small but profound shift. An environment that once prized uniform aesthetics above all now found room for practical empathy. Meanwhile, Gloria Farnett retreated into her condo. Some rumored she might sell and move away, too embarrassed by her downfall. Others said she was staying put but avoiding public events. No one missed her relentless oversight. Crestwood Terraces had discovered it could uphold decent standards without turning petty or cruel. One morning, Marianne woke to find a small box at her doorstep, along with a note from an anonymous neighbor. Inside the box lay a new set of wheels for her cart. Premium rubber ones designed to roll smoothly and leave fewer marks. A brief message read, "For Ms. Cooper, so your cart can glide even more quietly. We admire your perseverance." Tears sprang to Marianne's eyes. She realized that, ironically, the conflict had brought out the best in her neighbors. Seeing her singled out had rallied many to reject petty authoritarianism. Some even used the phrase Karen fiasco to describe how far Glendale Farnett had gone beyond acceptable boundaries. Marianne replaced the cart's original wheels with the new ones, noticing a distinct improvement in smoothness. On her next trip, the cart glided with near silence. She felt a surge of gratitude for the community that once included the very person who tried to banish her unsightly cart. The difference, she mused, was simple empathy. That same day, she also discovered a second note pinned to the building's bulletin board. It announced that the new indoor storage space was almost ready, with final painting and shelving to be completed over the weekend. Once done, seniors could keep their carts there if they preferred, or continue storing them in their own units. The board wanted to ensure no one felt forced to remove mobility aids from personal space. Marianne beamed. Not only had she regained her dignity and the right to roll around freely, but the entire complex was growing more caring and accessible. She felt proud to have played a role, however unwillingly at first. Though the immediate crisis was resolved, the matter of restitution remained. Gloria Farnett had inflicted real harm. Marianne's groceries were damaged, and she'd endured emotional distress from the incident. The police report Marianne filed had not been withdrawn. An investigation was underway to determine if the local authorities would press charges or propose a mediation. One afternoon, an officer called Marianne, explaining that the department had contacted Gloria. She was given the option to pay damages and issue an apology to avoid a potential misdemeanor charge. The officer asked if Marianne was open to that arrangement. Marianne hesitated. Part of her wanted to see Gloria face legal consequences for such a blatantly cruel act. Another part felt relief at the knowledge that Gloria was dethroned from the board and the rules had changed. Did she need more conflict? Ultimately, Marianne decided she would be content if Gloria offered a genuine apology and covered the cost of the damaged groceries. "I'm not looking for revenge," she told the officer. "I just want to ensure she never does this to anyone else." "Understood," the officer said. "We'll see if Ms. Farnett is willing to meet or at least issue a written apology and restitution. Otherwise, we'll proceed with charges." Thus, Marianne waited to see if Gloria would swallow her pride and make amends. She guessed Gloria's ego might prevent her from apologizing sincerely. The building, however, seemed hopeful that the fiasco could end quietly, allowing everyone to move on. While the legal piece hung in limbo, Crestwood Terraces buzzed with new positivity. The mobility device guidelines took effect, and a small ceremony marked the opening of the new mobility alcove near the lobby. Mark Ellison gave a short speech about inclusivity, praising how the community had come together to fix the oversight in their bylaws. Susan Park cut a ribbon, unveiling the neatly painted nook with labeled shelves, hooks, and a few spare wheel replacements or cart accessories, donated by caring residents. Marianne was touched when she saw a sign posted there. "We believe in helping neighbors move freely. This alcove is for carts, walkers, and mobility aids. Thanks to everyone who made it possible, and to Ms. Cooper, who inspired us to improve." A small crowd clapped, some hugging Marianne. She blushed, never expecting to be singled out like a hero. Yet the entire fiasco had indeed sparked a permanent change in how Crestwood Terraces approached accessibility. The memory of seeing her cart bound to a fence felt distant now, though not forgotten. Meanwhile, more seniors began adopting similar carts. Freed from fear, they found it easier to shop or run errands. Some younger residents even joked about borrowing carts for heavy loads of groceries. The once stigmatized rolling contraption had become a normal, accepted fixture of daily life. Marianne reveled in the shift. She felt gratitude for neighbors like Liz, Ethan, and Donna, who rallied to her side. She also admired the board members who pushed back against Gloria's tyranny. After years of quiet living, Marianne realized community spirit was alive and well, sometimes waiting for a crisis to be unleashed. A week after the alcove's opening, Marianne received a surprising visitor. She opened her door to find Gloria Farnett standing on the threshold, face pinched. In her hand, Gloria clutched an envelope. Marianne's pulse quickened. "Ms. Farnett." Gloria inhaled sharply. "I came because the police told me I could face charges if I don't settle this." Her eyes darted to the side. "So, I brought a check for the groceries you lost, plus some extra, and an apology letter." She extended the envelope. Marianne took it, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. She sensed Gloria's regret was driven by legal threat rather than genuine remorse. "Thank you," Marianne said softly, stepping aside. "Would you like to talk for a moment?" Gloria shook her head. "No, I just want to deliver it personally so the matter ends." She paused, fiddling with her ring. "I suppose I went too far, but I believed I was protecting the property. It's not personal." Marianne exhaled, meeting Gloria's gaze. "It felt personal when you tied my car to a fence. I hope you understand how humiliating that was." Gloria winced slightly, looking down. She mumbled, "I apologize for that. I read the new guidelines. I guess I was out of line." Then she turned, hurrying away before Marianne could reply further. Marianne closed the door, feeling a weight lift. She unfolded the letter and saw a stiffly worded typed note. "I, Gloria Farnett, apologize for inconveniences caused to Ms. Cooper. I agree to cover any damaged groceries. I acknowledge that my actions were excessive. G. Farnett." It wasn't warm or heartfelt, but it sufficed as an admission. The enclosed check amounted to more than the cost of lost food. Marianne decided to accept it, planning to donate any surplus to a local senior center. The official apology closed the legal loop, and though it lacked genuine empathy, it marked the final resolution of her conflict with a woman known as Karen. With Gloria Farnett's apology filed away, Marianne felt a profound sense of closure. No more fear of hateful letters or sabotage. The cart remained an accepted part of her routine, rolling quietly over the walkway. She resumed her daily life, unencumbered by rules that once threatened her independence. Neighbors noticed Marianne's brighter demeanor. She volunteered to help others learn how to navigate the new mobility alcove. Sometimes she crocheted small pouches or covers that fit over walker handles, giving them a soft, cheerful look. When asked about the impetus for her crafty upgrades, she'd smile and say, "Once you've been singled out for needing help, you want to make sure others never face that same trouble." As for Gloria, sightings were rare. She no longer attended board meetings. She seldom ventured into common areas, presumably wanting to avoid stares or confrontation. Rumors suggested she might move out soon. The building's mood soared as it realized how one person's negativity had overshadowed them. Freed from her watchful scorn, Crestwood Terraces embraced a gentler, more collaborative vibe. Intriguingly, Crestwood Terraces became something of a model for surrounding communities. Mark Ellison and Susan Park shared their new mobility policy with other HOAs in the region, presenting it as a balanced approach that preserved building aesthetics while respecting the needs of elderly or disabled residents. A small local newspaper ran a human interest piece about it. Local condo complex adopts senior-friendly cart policy after controversy. Residents unite to improve accessibility. Marianne was mentioned, though not by name, described as the elderly neighbor who spurred the changes. She received appreciative messages from seniors elsewhere who faced similar battles with inflexible HOAs. Some asked for advice or even visited Crestwood Terraces to see the mobility alcove in action. Though Marianne never sought the limelight, she felt gratified that her ordeal contributed to broader awareness. She lived quietly, cherishing modest independence. Yet, ironically, the drama caused by one person's cruelty had led to a kinder environment, not just in her building, but potentially inspiring others. Occasionally, Marianne reflected that she might still be struggling if not for the unstoppable wave of community outrage that erupted when Gloria acted so brazenly. If Gloria had stuck to official letters and fines, maybe the outcome would have been murkier. But her public, callous display galvanizing the neighbors proved to be her undoing. The rolling cart that once drew contempt from Gloria Farnett became something of a local icon among Crestwood Terraces residents. They joked about it affectionately, calling it Marianne's legendary cart. More importantly, several neighbors recognized the cart as emblematic of the right to convenience and dignity. Some seniors followed suit, purchasing similar carts with collapsible frames. A few had designs with floral patterns or bright colors, once taboo under the old aesthetics. Freed from worry, they discovered how a simple rolling bag could ease daily errands. Younger residents used them too, especially if they lacked a car or had large loads to haul from the parking lot. The board never intended to let the property become chaotic, but they realized a little variety in personal items wasn't detrimental to property values or aesthetics. Instead, it enriched the tapestry of daily life, celebrating real human needs over uniform appearances. Marianne grew comfortable giving small tutorials on how to load groceries efficiently or how to secure the cart on a bus ride if one needed public transportation. Her knowledge became a resource, She felt a surge of self-assurance she hadn't experienced in years, forging new friendships and stepping beyond her formerly quiet existence. As months passed, the board decided to host a Community Appreciation Day event in the courtyard to celebrate the new sense of unity. They set up tables with snacks, arranged games for kids, and invited local vendors, some selling artisanal goods, others offering services like mobile health checkups. Mark Ellison extended a special invitation to Mary Ann, asking if she would share her story during a small Neighbors Helping Neighbors presentation. Initially shy, Mary Ann eventually agreed. On a bright Saturday morning, the courtyard filled with laughter and chatter. Residents strolled among the tables, enjoying the mild weather. A small stage area had a microphone set up. Mark introduced Mary Ann, explaining how her experiences had sparked positive changes in the building's policies. Mary Ann spoke softly but clearly, describing how the grocery cart incident reminded everyone that simple accommodations often matter greatly, especially for older or disabled individuals. She praised the neighbors who stood by her, and the board members who recognized the need to adapt rules for real life. When she finished, applause rolled across the courtyard. Liz Becker and Ethan Morales, the two who had come to her immediate aid during the fiasco, joined Mary Ann on stage briefly. They shared how easy it was to help when you put yourself in someone else's shoes. "We'd do it again in a heartbeat," Ethan declared, triggering cheers. The celebration felt like a culmination from adversity sprang community. Though no one named Gloria Farnett out loud, her presence was felt in absentia as the cautionary tale behind the newly forged solidarity. Despite the communal positivity, a few stray rumors arose that Gloria Farnett was seen packing boxes, her condo possibly up for sale. Some neighbors spotted a real estate agent leaving her unit. Others claimed she was determined to stay and reassert herself once the heat died down. But in truth, she never reappeared at any social function or meeting. One late afternoon, Mary Ann glimpsed Gloria rushing into the elevator, avoiding eye contact. Mary Ann offered a nod of acknowledgement, but Gloria quickly turned her head. The hostility or shame was palpable, though Mary Ann felt mostly pity now. She surmised that someone so fixated on external order must harbor deep insecurities. The next day, a small moving truck arrived. Indeed, Gloria Farnett was moving out. A few watchers saw her boxes labeled HOA files or decor policies. With no fanfare, she departed, leaving behind the condo that had once been her domain of petty rule enforcement. No farewell parties, no tearful goodbyes. When the truck finally rolled away, a subtle cheer rose from a few onlookers. Mary Ann felt a twinge of sadness, tempered by relief. She didn't relish seeing someone's downfall, but after the trauma inflicted, it seemed a necessary conclusion. The building was free to evolve further, no longer tethered to a single Karen enforcing personal tastes. With Gloria gone, any lingering fear among the residents vanished. They joked that maybe the scuff marks on the walkway would vanish too, metaphorically, if not literally. Mary Ann's small part in the building's transformation was etched in communal memory. One cart, stolen and tied up, had sparked a wave of empathy and policy changes. In the ensuing months, life in Crestwood Terraces settled into a peaceful rhythm. Mary Ann resumed her grocery trips, cart in tow, without the weight of potential confrontation. The new mobility alcove was in frequent use, not just by seniors, but also younger folks to store strollers or large rolling duffel bags. The neighborhood's once rigid atmosphere warmed to the idea that practical didn't have to clash with aesthetic. From time to time, Mary Ann recalled the humiliating moment when she found her cart lashed to the fence. The memory no longer stung as sharply. Instead, it reminded her that a community's true spirit can rise up against cruelty and find better solutions. She felt grateful for the neighbors who defended her, for the board members who realized the guidelines needed to serve people first. One balmy evening, Mary Ann walked outside to watch the sunset. Leaning against her cart, she spotted Donna and Liz chatting near the flower beds. They waved her over. The three sat on a bench, enjoying the twilight glow, occasionally sipping iced tea from cups Liz had brought. The walkway, once a battleground, was simply a path leading home. In that soft golden light, Marianne realized how far they'd come. No more hush of fear around a single oppressive figure. No more sabotage of a harmless cart. Instead, the complex thrived on neighborly connections, forging a place where a rolling bag of groceries wasn't an eyesore, but just another part of daily life. Life's a tapestry, Marianne murmured, and each thread has its place, like these little wheels rolling along. Donna smiled, and Liz nodded. And with that, the three watched the sun dip below the horizon, content in a building that had found compassion through adversity, ensuring that no one else's cart would ever be tied away again.